Good evening and welcome. Welcome to a wonderful Monday night. Thank you so very much for taking time to come join John, Cubbie, and myself. Hopefully, you are enjoying whatever's going on. I will say this, gentlemen, nicer weather. Well, more sunshine and what I heard somebody say snow before we got started.
Yeah, Cubbie was using that profanity.
I know.
It's supposed to
I
be
thought
coming
that was
this
wait
weekend.
a minute. Where you live, I thought that was a welcomed thing.
Well, it gets to be, but after this particular winter when we didn't have much and we've been in the 50s and 60s for the last like 2 to 3 weeks, yeah, it's like we're ready to start planting.
Yeah.
And then you get so it's all relative. It's like everything else, it's relative. You know, maybe I need to put this in a math teacher thing. So if A equals nice weather and you have A squared, that's what we've had
It's
this year.
really nice weather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what we've had this year. And now you're going to be throwing, minus Z, and Z is bad weather.
I think it's my fault. I took my snow brush out of my car
Oh,
about a week ago,
wow.
and I think it's going to hit us.
Yeah, how careless of you,
We,
Cubby. You
I left
must.
my snowblower still out. I haven't even put it. I haven't put it away since last winter. So I was like, I wasn't playing with it. I was waiting. July storm. It was going to come, but I was ready.
You were, yeah.
I was ready.
You're going to be a Minnesotan at that
Yeah.
point. Wow.
Bemidji, Minnesota.
Yeah, you'll be able to go
Uh,
and visit Ben. You'll be like ready for it. Yeah, August snowstorm. I'm on it, man. I know how to deal with these things. So tonight, guys, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about. I think we see two real big dynamics in the DJ world right now when it comes to the 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 business side of it and how successful or not successful. And I don't like to use the term successful, but maybe it's more of a profitable. But let me just kind of spell or kind of talk about what I'm meaning here is that we have some DJs who are having a lot of success with their business, and they are really driving income, and they are booking shows. And we just saw one of my friends on Facebook today. He mentioned he had like 11 inquiries today, just an incredibly busy day. I think it was 11, but anyway, he said maybe it was 15, and his tops ever has been 17 inquiries in a day, and he was like right there. So it must have been higher than that. You've got some that are booking and doing well in some areas, and then you've got other areas where they're struggling. They've got open calendars and open dates, and venues in the area aren't doing that. And it really kind of got me to thinking is that in our situation right now is Dan has a full-time math teaching job, and he also does a DJ thing. Cubby is basically a full-time entertainer, whether it's on tables or behind a microphone.
And a pole.
And a pole. Yeah, exactly. Pole.
yeah, don't forget
Microphone.
that.
Yeah, you got to have the two. And myself, I've
He's
been
got the
doing the disc
quads.
jockey news and then of course the DJ thing. Those have been my two basic main incomes. And then of course I've got a couple of other YouTube channels. But it's been something very similar in that world for the last. I think we started the Weekend Handyman in 2014. So from the 90s until 2004, it was basically DJ income. From like 94, 95 until then, I was a full-time DJ. And then in 2004, then I added the disc jockey news, and in 2014, I added weekend handyman and weekend sportsman world type of thing. So that's been kind of where we're at. And as times have gone on, things have changed a little bit, and I really kind of wanted to dig into tonight. Um, Dan, in Dan's situation, and we've talked in the past about you moving from even maybe moving into a full time role, and I wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit. And in Cubby, from your perspective, I really want to talk about what things have basically made it so you didn't need to go and find that secondary source of income or a working at a different job, which you have also in the past have had that, and let's dig into that also here in a second. So. Before we go completely, one of the things I wanted to mention for those of you who do follow our shows quite a bit is starting next week, I will be actually taking a second job. I'll be working in the for the postal service in Minnesota here, and that's something that just fit into my schedule with the disc jockey news and all the different things. So, yeah, I'll start that next week and beyond. I'll be selling stamps at one of our local post offices up here. So that's and we'll dig into more of that as we go along. But so Dan, let's kind of start with you. You've had the teaching job and you've been teaching forever. Basically
Something like that.
shortly after they moved books from the tablets, the rock tablets to you were there.
To the electronic ones, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was great. Um, Talk a little bit about that because you were DJing before you got into teaching fully, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I started DJing radio wise in high school, and then in college put together a like small sound system and was doing just parties, and then I did it just as supplemental. Like I always thought I wanted to be a radio DJ, and kind of was going down that route. Then started actually having that career and enjoyed it, but kind of witnessed I was either going to have to move a lot or probably not make much money. That was kind of like the writing on the wall that I was starting to see. Um, I don't have much of a transient lifestyle, so it was one of those things I was like, okay, time to figure out what I'm going to do. And my now wife, we were dating at the time, and we started talking about possibly going into teaching. And because I always enjoyed math, as weird as some of the people might think that. I always enjoyed math, but what I was able to do at some points was even to do like some substitute teaching because I had a degree.
Hmm.
And so I got to go into the schools and I was tutoring some other people that were at the college level that just needed some extra help with some different things. And I was like, you know what? I kind of like this. And so it allowed me to kind of get out of the radio thing. At that point, I didn't know of anybody that did this full time,
Hmm.
that did full time DJing. Anybody that I knew of, the closest I could find that I knew of, I should say, were radio DJs who then DJ'd like
Okay.
parties and mobile events. So I didn't even know that existed until after I was teaching and DJing at the same time. And that's when, yeah, things opened up a little bit different there.
So let's kind of put a pin in that because I wanted to because you got us to that point, Cubbie. You actually didn't start as a DJ. You've had a variety of different hats over the years. So let's kind of
Yeah.
work through there and what brought you into the performing world.
Yeah, so I have a degree in finance. I used to be in the consumer lending world, leasing, and I was also a part-time mascot for a baseball team. And I did a parade for a guy that owns a DJ company. And he said, "What do you do during the off season?" And I said, "Nothing." He said, "You ever thought about DJing?" I was like, "Nope." So next thing you know, it became, so what does it pay? And so we talked about it, and I became one of his most booked DJs. So I literally, and that in turn helped him buy, it's no secret, I guess. Some people know, he bought Mobile Beat magazine. I used to work for Ryan Berger at BC Productions. And so then he asked me to come on full time as his national sales director. And so I quit being a mascot and went to work for him, left the leasing and that world. And I went to work for Ryan Berger for about 3 years. It was the internet was taking off, the print industry was taking kind of I think nobody's advertising a lot anymore. The show was really doing well, but he couldn't handle the salaries that he had, so he had to let me go. And so from that point, I went and opened up my own DJ company. And then I started working for a company called Bliss Light. So I stayed within the industry. They did lasers. A lot of people still have some people still have Bliss Light lights. But they started trending into the consumer market with outdoor Christmas holiday lighting, things of that nature. The travel just got really extensive. They were a startup company and I was doing trade shows left and right. They're sexy places. I mean, I've been to Dubai, London, Frankfurt Plaza, Vegas thousands of times, and just different things trying to get the product off the ground. It was very, we got into Home Depot and Lowe's, and my biggest sale was QVC at $15.1 million to put them on QVC. They were the holiday product of the year. But the traveling got extensive. I was missing a lot of things in my kid's life that you could never buy back. I don't care how much money you make. You can never buy walking your daughter out on senior night at basketball or homecoming court at football. And I turned in my notice. I turned in about a month notice, and we were transitioning some products and some vendors and Costco and stuff like that. So I stayed on for about a month, but I didn't have to travel and kind of manage the team. And then I left from there. Then I kind of got bored, went to work for the American Disc Jockey Association, Dr. Drax, and helping produce that show. And shortly after there, went to another great guy, DJ Event Planner. I worked for DJ Event Planner for years, sales and a little bit of customer service. Uh, but it allowed me still to be the freedom of being a multi-op. Both of those companies will work from home, and I was able to still manage my company, so to speak, and grow the business. And it got to where it got too big to where I actually had to quit DJ event planner, and now I literally do full-time DJing for all those years.
And and right now, as you mentioned, you've gotten a bit large enough where that's like the only income for your side of the household.
Yes, it is. That's all I get. I don't have any part-time jobs. I mean, it's if I'm not hustling, I'm not eating.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I am always out there marketing and doing whatever I can to continue, because I have five families to feed. I say I have five families to feed. It's not I have that many ex-wives. But I have five people that work for me that count on me
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they can support their family. So I take that responsibility very serious and do my best to make sure I take good care of them.
Sure. Let's put a pin in that, Dan. Let's jump. The idea, of course, you mentioned it just a little bit, but I wanted you to kind of elaborate a little bit more. You and I had a conversation probably about 2 years ago where you were kind of contemplating maybe going into a full-time DJ. Kind of go through some of the thoughts of what was appealing to that and what ultimately led you to the decision that it just probably wasn't in your best interest in your family's best interest to move into that.
We've had this conversation more than once, Sean.
Yeah,
I
I know.
really have. Um, so what was going into it at that time was, as I started to meet DJs and talk to other DJs and recognize that this is something that could be done for a career, I started to kind of have that desire. Like, there was a reason why I wanted to get into radio DJ at the first place, right? Like, I liked that side of it, and I liked what that opened up. And then when I was doing the mobile aspect, I really started to, hone in on that, and it was starting to get enough events that it felt good, right? I mean, there's a reason why we do this job, right? It's a feel good type of thing. When you're on your game, and the night's going well, like, there's an energy there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an adrenaline rush, and that's one of the reasons why I love what I do. And so my thought was like, well, let's do this all the time. Um, I was also in a situation where I was getting very frustrated. Both of the times that I really kind of went down that path, I was really getting frustrated with education. I was getting frustrated with the districts that I was in. And I just was looking for a way to get out without having to go back to college and start from scratch again.
Sure.
Like DJing, I have a degree in broadcast communications. That didn't pan out. I have my degree in teaching, and if I were like, I really did not want to go back for a third college degree to try and do that. Like, that didn't make sense to me. So
Mm-hmm.
it really was kind of one of those things where I was like, what can I do? What do I enjoy? And what would make the most sense at this point in my life?
And it is some of the factors when you started to weigh it out. Obviously,
Oh,
the
yeah.
degree is part of it, but there were some other things that you were taking into consideration.
Yeah, so as far as reasons for it, like, I like the fact that, um I didn't want to pick up a part-time job throughout the week that was going to cause me to be away from home. Like, I wanted to be able to be there for my kids, especially if I was going to be working every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I also knew that it afforded me some luxury in some aspects because, if I'm home throughout the week, able to work from home with the office or whatnot, maybe I'm meeting with a client, but for the most part, I'm working from home. I don't have to worry about childcare anymore. Like, I can be a stay-at-home dad Monday through Friday while my wife is off doing her job, and then, we can kind of trade off. The fact, if I was working on weekends, my wife was home, so there, I didn't have to worry about, that trade-off. It made sense for me to work when there was coverage in that aspect. So those were some of the pieces that really kind of made me consider it.
Mm-hmm.
The one, do you want me to go the other direction
Yeah, that's
there?
where
Or we
that's
said,
actually the one I
okay,
really want to focus on. Is that the other side? Yep.
okay. So the other side, what really kind of held me off, there was probably a bunch of main things, right? So I'm very lucky in the fact that my wife is a teacher. We were on her insurance, so I didn't have to worry about the insurance. That was the other piece that kind of still
Certainly.
made me think about it. I didn't have to worry about the insurance side, which I think is a whole other animal and has only gotten, worse for a lot of people. But what I started to think about was as my business had gotten, to the level that it was, that made me consider this, and my teaching career had been established for a certain number of years, both of these had a high enough income that if I took one of them away, it was going to make a significant difference to how our lifestyle was. Like we've gotten used to having, both of those incomes.
Sure.
And teaching doesn't make a ton of money, right? Like if I were to take what I do and go into the private sector, I'd make more money doing it. But I make a comfortable living with the teaching side.
Sure.
So if I were to just drop that out, I now have to make up, at that point, I think it was like $50,000. I would have had to make up $50,000 in events. As we've talked, in my area, weddings are really like April if we're lucky, definitely by May, to end of October, maybe a few throughout Christmas. Like there's not a lot of in between.
Hmm.
And so that meant I was going to have to somehow pick up, let's say I was charging $2,000. I have to pick up 25 more weddings. That that there just wasn't a place for that. And so it would have either meant coming way back on the money aspect, as well as some of those other things. Plus, it wasn't that I really wanted to walk away from teaching. I was just not happy with the scenarios that were happening within the teaching. So there was a lot of things that kind of pulled that helped me pump up the brakes and just kind of stop for a second and really kind of consider what was I going to go down the path. And then, like I said, like one of the advantages was I wanted to be home during the week. And for a lot of people who make this a go, at least in the beginning, if not, unless they're in a larger area where they're doing, four weddings in a week, you're doing bar work of some sort in the beginning. So, and that was just going to be a position that I didn't want to do because now that takes me away from my time with my boys and with my family, and I just ultimately decided it was not going to be a good venture for me.
And I want to just take a second there. You mentioned, of course, that you would have to replace the income from your teaching, and you put a number out there. For those who are watching and they're thinking like 25 weddings, I can book 25 weddings a year. Well, you got to keep in mind, Dan was already DJing and he already had a number of weddings on the books. Let's just say it's 10. Well, now those open Saturdays, there's only maybe 30 potential Saturdays of weddings in our upper, the northern states type of an area. And if he's already got 10 of them booked, that means that he's got 25 weddings and 20 dates. So then he's either trying to find Fridays or Sundays or other different things. So it really becomes, in his case, and I think it's one of the areas a lot of DJs overlook when they go from a full-time job to all of a sudden I'm a full-time DJ, is that, okay, so I'm used to the money, that extra money from the DJ, and I'm used to that income from my full-time job. Now, I don't have that income from my full-time job. I don't have any benefits that potentially could retirement. None of that is there. And Cubbie, that's where I want to drift over to you now. Is you obviously when you were doing your different sales jobs, there were things like 401ks and different little benefits like that. How has your comfort level been when it comes to the looking at those types of things or figuring that out? Since it's basically you're the one making the sale, and if you're not making the sale, you're not putting money into anything like that. How did that work for you?
What do you want to tackle first? The benefits or my business plan
Well, not so much
or
a business plan, but just your comfort level. You went from businesses that were probably offering you a some sort of a retirement, that were putting money into a retirement, as an example. Um, when you're on your own, it's either you're putting that money in or it's not going in.
correct.
And how are you? That comfort level of making that jump, and that's a commitment to be able to still fund a retirement package or plan. And many DJs don't do that, and they get to the end, and or as Randy Bartlett has shared that in his case, but he's had numerous DJs who are asking them, and they get to be 50, 55, 60 years old, and they're like, so Randy, how do you retire as a DJ?
Yeah, you guys start early. I talked to some financial advisors, whether it's Edward Jones. I was lucky because they took the commission from the QVC sale at 15.1 and banked it. I used a little bit of it to buy some equipment and for additional DJs and things of that nature. Then I kind of banked it in there. And then I take 10% off every month of gross sales and put it back into a 401k for retirement.
So you've really been dedicating and very diligent to make sure
Yes.
you're covering those things.
But start, yeah. So if you, like you said, if you were Dan or yourself or whatever, and you have that 401k, leave that there. I moved mine in because I said I got the commissions over some time because it took a while with paybacks and chargebacks and things of that nature that I was able to turn around and boost that in there and then use some a little bit out before. So I wasn't pulling out for tax. I didn't take a tax loss on it for pulling out of a 401k, but before I put it in there, I pulled some out and then put it in.
And how tough is that as you're continuing on? And you mentioned, of course, that you keep a percent and try to put that into 401k each month, 401k each month. To do that, how is it? Is it become an easier thing for you over time, or is it still kind of a struggle? Not so much from the financial side of it, but just to have that dedication to do it.
It's financial responsibility. It's I'm a credit card guy and I love points. So whether it's my American Express, my Delta, or my Discover Delta, my Delta American Express or whatever, I pay them off monthly. So it's just a matter of cutting a check each and every month, just like I do my bills to clear off my credit cards each and every month. But I like to collect those points, so when I go on vacations and stuff like that, Capital One's got 5%. So it's just having that dedication. I have no small kids. I'm not buying diapers. I'm not going through it. So some of these, people that are in their mid 20s and 30s and still got kids in school, um, I was working through all that time. Now it's easier for me because all my kids are grown, and I do have some expenses with some college age girls and some granddaughters and things. But it's not. I don't have that expense like they're going through now. So I guess I'm really fortunate because mine came later in life when I decided to go full-time DJ. And a lot of my kids were already older, and I'm not going through what people are going through now.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't have an 8-year-old playing soccer every Saturday, and I don't have a 10-year-old in cheer competition. I don't have those things on Saturdays any longer. So me to be able to focus on my weekend job, per se, makes it a lot easier for me.
Sure. And definitely opens up that time in the schedule, which would be very
Yes.
critical for what the kind of stuff you do, and that we'll kind of get back to how you kind of fill that calendar and do that. Um, Dan, I wanted to kind of drift off a little bit and get into the side. You talked about the positives and the negatives and such. Um, right, but as making it a part time situation where you're at right now, some of the positives you have been able to for those who are like, okay, maybe I'm a full time, maybe I'm a struggling full time, and to a point, I'll even say that that could be considered in my case a little bit, that I've got shows, but I don't have enough shows to make the DJ side of it a full time income anymore. So it becomes a question of what do you do? Um, what type of because you have the part-time things, what does that afford by having that full-time job as a backup? What does that afford you to do with the DJ side of it?
It allows me to pick and choose exactly what I want, when I want. Um, we still have some of the same struggles, right? Like, so, when you've got couples that are reaching out to you a year in advance, you make a commitment to them. It kind of is hard when you have a family member who reaches out and is like, "Hey, we're doing this on this Saturday in 3 months," and you go, "Yeah, I needed a year and a half in advance notice. I'm sorry, I won't be there." And that becomes very difficult. But what it does allow me to do is so case in point, my son and my wife are very blessed. Our local district is going to Ireland this summer. The problem is when you schedule those type of trips, they give you a window that the trip is going to be. That window was 3 weekends in June.
Ooh.
Ooh.
So exactly. So now for the most part, it was also June's not been tremendous here. We've had some really, really hot Junes. So it's kind of fallen a little bit under the July scope. But this year it was really starting to come back. And I just went, you know what? I don't know what's going to be happening that time to find childcare for my youngest for the duration of a wedding day. and getting home at midnight. Like I can't, have the local 12-year-old or 13-year-old watch my son because I'm not getting home till midnight, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not an option for them. So it allowed me to just go, you know what? I'm not going to take anything this 3 weeks until we find out what the actual travel is going to be. I'm not going to take anything. Um, and that hurts. That hurts so much when you get those phone calls because you're like, I want to take this wedding.
Mm-hmm.
But it also allows me to be picky, right? So when I have an event where somebody's calling for a middle of nowhere tent wedding where the only option is a generator and it just sounds like it's not up my alley, I don't have to go, man, I really have to worry about putting food on the table. I better take this. I can go, sorry, I'm not available, and just move on from it. And those kind of things really are you know beautiful aspects. I mean, beautiful benefits to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's also allowed me to really kind of treat I get to treat my business probably a little bit better than I think a lot of people do. So when I was initially doing the DJ side, um, and just kind of just getting into business, I put everything into our personal account. And when I needed to get something, I really kind of had to beg, borrow, and ask my wife, can I please like go get said equipment? Um, I learned along the way how to treat my business like a business and have its own account, and I pay myself out of that business. But because it's not because it becomes extra money for us to do home repairs on, to do vacations with, um, it allows me really to kind of be a little bit more generous on what stays in the business account and what comes out to me.
Sure.
So I'm still making a decent amount for it, but I've got a nice nest egg in there for the business account. Should something go down, I don't have to worry. I mean, I could completely replace my entire system, including my trailer, and not bad. I mean, I'd have to bat an eye because it would hurt my, just financially it'd hurt me, but I could pay for it all, right? Like, and those are the things I think that it's afforded me the ability to do is because I'm not relying on it to put food on the table. I can have that luxury to go, you know what, I'm going to keep a little bit more in there. And if there is a hot piece of gear that I want to check out, you know what? I can justify it in my head because I'm paying it out of the business.
Talk just a second about you get a call from someone and they're looking for a date. As someone who basically that is doing this full time, um, this is that 1 of those 20 open dates that you have to book. What kind of a difference is when you are fielding that call for a date that you may or may not need to book because the bills are still paid? How does the feeling of that call change for you?
Well, it kind of depends. So actually, I'll mention one other thing is, it also affords me the luxury of being able to take off for my kids' birthdays, my
Mm-hmm.
wife's birthday, right? Our anniversary if it falls close. Like I don't have to worry about upsetting somebody because I'm gone on the night that they think I should be home. Um, but when those calls come in, I will say this, my ego gets in the way a little bit. So even though this is part-time, when that call comes in or that email comes in, like I want that event, right? Like that's the thing. I want to do that event. Unless they start giving me some signs or a location that I'm just like, oh, I really don't want to do that. Like there's some locations I'm just like, you know what? I don't really feel like being there.
Sure.
But for the most part, I want it, right? Like so I'm gonna go after it. But when all is said and done, if I don't get it, okay. Like I'm bummed for a little bit, but then I move on and I just kind of look at it. And a lot of times something else comes along that I'm kind of glad that I didn't get it or that I turned it down
Mm,
because I didn't want it. So it does give you definitely a lot more. Well, what they say, if you have the ability to say no, it gives you power, right? The ability to say no to somebody gives you power. And so maybe you're not saying no to them, but you are more selective in how you go about what you say. You make sure the terms are completely in your court. And if not, you're okay with walking away. That gives you a lot of power, especially going into then the next one that you may want a little bit more.
sure. Cubbie,
Yes,
Dan
sir.
talked about kind of a diversity of income and some benefits of that between his teaching and the DJ and both being income sources. In your situation, you're primarily your company's primarily wedding DJs. How do you handle that diversity to be able to fill those or to fill the calendar well enough to be having that income flow to keep a business and those five families fed?
Oh, John, I think we've talked about this lots of times.
We have so
We have. Let me rehash it again. I do a lot of midweek work, but some of those are actually different DJs that I use in my regular five DJs. But it still feeds into my wedding DJs because my trivia and bingo host are not wedding DJs. Now they can always come up to me once they get trained up and I hear them on the mic, and because it's a great training ground for new DJs that I can bring into my companies once they've been hosting trivia or musical bingo as they get their comfortability on the mic. So I do a lot of midweek money with trivia and musical bingo, which in turns gives me a lot of weddings and corporate events, and huge corporate events. As you know, I work with America's top workplaces, and I've been down to Austin, Texas, and Oklahoma, and I just booked Green Bay and Milwaukee coming up. So any place they can take me, right? So it's really helped me build these relationships with other companies, and I go all over the state of Iowa, like, oh, we really like here. Can we take you down to Missouri and do this for a group down in Missouri or whatever?
hmm
So I diversify into doing the musical bingo and trivia. I don't do karaoke. I kind of focus on the trivia and the bingo, but there's also a lot of midweek money you can get that can afford you other jobs.
hmm Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that unfortunately many times when we're trying to start and go full time is that there's things that are overlooked. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to book those 20 weddings or 25 weddings and I'll be great. And as you mentioned earlier, Dan, that's not the way it would have been for you to start with, and that diversification of income that Cubbie's been able to utilize and build his business with is a great thing. Dan mentioned, of course, trying to have that balance of family time and business and teaching, and trying to have that, keeping that there. As someone who basically, if you're not making a sale, you're not making money. How are you able to balance your family time with all those different parts of the trivia and taking these bookings?
Early on, it was tough because I was doing a lot of the weekly night stuff, right? I was going out 4 nights a week and then weddings on Friday and Saturday. Now, as my business has matured, I've got separate trivia and bingo hosts and separate wedding hosts. So, and then I literally go out 2 nights a week. And the reason I go out 2 nights a week is one bar I've been there 13 years and one bar I've been there 8 years. And when those bars ever close, I'm out. They know if I stop doing it, it would probably die because a lot of times in trivia locations, people who maybe host trivia or bingo go out because of the host.
Sure.
They want to see them each and every week. So if I'm not there, I'm getting texts like, "Where are you?" Or what happened?
Yeah, are
And
you sick?
I'm on vacation this week. Yeah, I'm on vacation this week. Sorry. And I never want to say when I'm going on vacation because then nobody will be there because like, well, Cubby's on vacation, so
You're not
I'm
going.
not going to trivia. So then it really kind of ruins the night for the bar, and I don't want to do that. So like I said in the early beginning, and as you're just starting out, like Dan and maybe some of these other guys are contemplating going full time. It is a struggle in the beginning. It is. It's a 7 to 9 bar gig, or 8 to 10, depending. You get your kids to bed and shoot out to do the trivia or bingo, depending what the bar may need. But in the early going, it was not easy, and it was a lot of work. But I haven't gotten where I was today without all the people that I have working for me, and I appreciate each and every one of them.
hmm
But it's through the years I've been able to go more into management. I do a lot of weddings still. I do 50. I'm like Dan. They call them like, oh my gosh, I gotta have Cubbie. Okay, I'll do it. Um, and type things. So,
Do,
but
do you do you get as we mentioned with Dan, because of the teaching, he's able to, I don't want to say be more selective, but he can not feel bad in those times when either they don't hire him or he chooses not to go. Your selectivity ability in your situation, can you be as selective as you want to be when it comes to calls and booking of events?
I don't know. Call me snarky, Dan. I do have 3 venues I will flat out not go to. Don't care what it is. I'm like, oh, it's at this location. I'm sorry, we're booked. I don't know. Call me snarky. Yeah, it's either got this bad management, poor load in, don't work well together, just whatever it may be. So yeah, I do have some locations that I flat out will refuse to go to. So I can be. But again, I'm the oldest fish in the pond where I'm at, right? I've been here for 18 years. As a new startup guy, I don't know if I'd be so selective. Get your name out there and then drop back and be selective. Suck it up a little bit. I don't know. It's a tough call. I mean, because I'm talking from a guy that's been doing this for 18 years, same market, and diversified and things of that nature. But as we're talking to the new people that are contemplating this, maybe making this decision, I don't want to blow smoke up your britches and go, that's the best thing ever. You should do it, because it is going to be a lot of work early, right? And you're going to have to take some of those events that you may or may not want. But you do it to get to where I'm at today, and not that I'm anywhere or better than anybody else. At all. But you do have to put the time in early, and then once you start getting more and more DJs, then you can kind of go back into more of a management and work when you want to.
And we've over the years met many of DJs who have done a similar path, maybe not utilizing the evening during the week type of thing, but they went from a single to maybe a 2 system to a 5 to 10 system company, and have moved into that more management role and have done a very, very well with that. Definitely.
And I still love going out. But yeah, the new people going to contemplating, it's going to be a struggle for the first 2-3 years, but once you build it, they will come. It's like the movie says, if you build it, they will come. It says something about Iowa too. Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa.
No, it's Iowa.
Remember that movie, Field of Dreams, John?
Yeah, I think I remember it. It was
Yeah,
about
they didn't
this.
say Minnesota. They said Iowa.
Yeah,
Is this
there's
heaven?
something about a guy who had a bat or something, and
Yeah, get out of the cornfield.
and then didn't he point to a home run and hit the ball really far? No, it was the girls who were throwing that pitch, and there's no crying in baseball. That was that one, right?
Yeah, that you got your movies mixed up.
I do. Oh, no lightsabers.
The
in that
dog
one
that
either?
jumped up and grabbed it, right?
Oh yeah, there
Yeah.
we go. Yeah, that's right. That guy, the kid who had his elbow fixed. So we're going to wrap this up here in just a little bit, but
Wow, is it over?
well, not quite yet. But I want to kind of wrap up this this side of it a little bit. I want to kind of finish of if you had to change in your case, Dan, if you had to go from teaching, all of a sudden, say the teaching became they were no longer, your school shut down, and you had to make a decision, to make a jump to going full time or to go find another job. Well, I want to get your thoughts on that. And Cubbie, I want to come back with yours. I want to basically, if all of a sudden you were in a position where you felt you needed, what would be that impetus, or what would be that point where you would say, you know what, maybe I need to go and find a different job, type of a thing. And this is kind of where I'm going to jump in here a little bit, because this is where I have been at with the last number of years, because with the disc jockey news, as Cubbie started in talking about media companies, the mobile beat saw a decline in their things, and we've had the same thing happen here with the disc jockey news. And in central Minnesota, we've also seen a kind of a reduction of the amount of weddings and how that world has come, and it's gotten to the point where I can live very frugally and not buy the newest speaker when it comes out, and we can survive. Or I can look at diversifying my income by having a part-time job somewhere that will take care of some of the family expenses and have the business running similar to what Dan was describing earlier on, which would allow me to be more selective in what I am doing as far as taking shows and things. Because last summer it was a pretty empty summer for the month of June, and I absolutely loved it. This year my June is pretty much, I've got a wedding I think every weekend, which is all fine and good, but there was a lot of stuff I did in June last year that I really enjoyed, and I didn't have that selectivity to do that. And there's a part of me that really that's a huge thing, Dan, as you were describing that to be able to do that. So for me, it really became a variety of factors, and probably the final one is as I'm getting older, and we're starting to look at, okay, what is health insurance going to be looking like for a 60-year-old, and how long will I be able to do those, be able to do enough shows as the health insurance and things go up. And it's like, maybe it's time for us to be starting to look at different sources of covering some of those types of expenses, and some of those benefits that we have to pay for out of our own pocket. And because we're not in a group of any sort, they aren't as attractive as when I was teaching. I had great health insurance. I haven't had that level of health insurance since I was teaching in the early 90s. And back then, it was probably, I don't even know if it cost me anything. I think it was all in my teacher's, in my package. But anyway, so there's a variety of things that have kind of fit into that. Dan, let's go back to you as far as if you had to, would the jump to full time be something you'd like to do, you would be willing to contemplate, or would it be one of those things that it's like, I need to have this, the DJ here and something else here as the main income driver?
If something were to happen, and there's always threat because I teach cyber, so if that ever goes away, or legislation prohibits it, whatever, I'm not going back and getting another teaching job someplace else. So if this goes sour, I'm going into full-time DJing. Like that's my next path. I'm not going to go back to school and pick up another income. I'm not going to go flip burgers at Burger King and make whatever there. Um, I've kind of already put that back in my head of like, okay, what would I need to do to be able to be that full-time DJ, pick up some of the bar work. The other thing that I didn't, mention earlier, but one of the reasons why I also contemplated going into DJing is all the things that go into the business side of what we do has to be done at some point. SEO, videos, reviews, like social media posts, like all those things need to be done. And it's really hard when you're working a full-time job and you're doing a full-time DJ
Oh,
business.
for sure.
And that's the way I treat my business, is that it's it technically it's part-time, but I treat it as if it's full-time. And so I would I would, if something happened and I was no longer teaching, you would see me being a full-time DJ.
Cubbie, if you get to, what would it take, or where's that point where you would say, you know what, I need to find another source of income? Would it be benefits? Would it be just the number of shows falling? What would it take for you to make that, start to contemplate that?
At this point in time, nothing. Honestly, I would have to lose all five of my DJs and not be able to replace them. I think again, because of the longevity of my company, when I retire, my daughter's taking over my company.
Nice.
Um, and that's in place already. Um, we have as long as we replace, as long as we continue building a great staff and they continue doing a great job, and we continue to get the referrals and we keep getting the business. I can't imagine it stopping. I know my DJs are gonna have to stop sometime. Like I said, I've got five that have been with me for years, and they're gonna get tired of it. But I'm just always looking and hiring new people. So, it would have to be, like I said, a rotation of I didn't have enough staff,
Mm-hmm.
that would ever have to close it. So, and I think, like I said, yeah, it'd have to be I ran out of staff
And even
that,
that, as you say, you can bring someone in, train them. Maybe they've been one of your trivia hosts and such, and you can.
yep.
So you've got kind of a nice flow, within what you've built. As long as there's, and not that this would ever happen, as long as you're not a pandemic that shuts everything down, you're probably good, huh?
Yeah, yeah. The pandemic was tough on us. We made it through, but um, it was sweet. And I know me and you talked a lot during the pandemic, and it was, yeah. I'd have to lose all my DJs. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what it'd be.
For you to make that jump, yeah. No, that's interesting, guys. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. So tomorrow night, gentlemen, we're actually going to be having we're getting a 4-week Ben Stowe coming back, and we're going to be talking, because it seems that ceremony stuff is always such a hot topic thing. We're going to start out tomorrow night. We've got our first night, and we're going to be talking about the difference, the benefits of an analog versus digital, when you're talking about doing the ceremony sound. And Ben's going to dig into that. I was actually going to see if I could find find our show and give everyone a sneak peek here on what our show is. Oh, I have it right here. So then we're going to be, then week 2, we're going to be talking about wedding ceremony microphones, and we've talked about that. But we're going to dig into the differences when it came to the lapel mic and the quality of the lapel mic, and how they're going to react when there's multiple of them, and how we can deal with issues with that in live situations. And then there's always the questions about lighting in the dance floor area, and how much lighting it's going to take to do different things. So we're going to be digging into to the lighting such, and then talking about clean power and surge protection and power conditioning. because we still have places that are having issues with that. And I've run into people who've been talking about using they bring their UPS battery backup that they bought at Walmart out, and they plug their DJ system into it, and they're out doing their thing. So there's obviously people who are struggling with those things, and we're going to hit those topics over here the next 4 weeks. So should be good stuff. Good stuff indeed. That's it. And tomorrow morning's video that hits is actually I shot that one getting ready for my morning workout. So you get to I actually had some tips that I've been kind of working as 5 little lessons I've learned the hard way through getting out and doing things, and because a lot of you out there in the DJ world are going out and running and exercising and doing some things, and you've added that to your life, or you've been contemplating adding to it, like Cubbie is. For those of you who don't know, Cubbie's really just into the stripper pole, but that's another story for another night. But a lot of you have been getting out there and doing some things, and there's things that I've kind of been picking up, and I wanted to share those, and that'll be hitting tomorrow morning. So you guys can check that out there. And then tonight, Howie is not going to be in. He's kind of under the weather just a little bit this evening. So Brian is going to be. It'll be hanging with Brian at DJNTV.com/chill. Brian Red will be kind of hosting things, and hopefully he's been talking a little bit. He's had some interesting topics that he's been utilizing on his channel here, talking about the imposter syndrome today. So I'm hoping he'll dig into that a little bit more with tonight's show. And you guys can go again out DJNTV.com/chill and listen to them. They record the first session and then hang out and chat the night away. So any other news, guys, before we wrap up?
Mm-mm.
I haven't seen any new gear this.
I did take advantage of some NLFs, MEX deals they had. So if you haven't seen those, I've got some nice bags for my Evolve 8s. There's some great deals on the 8s and on the 12s. So if you're still looking in the market for stuff, I don't know if those deals are still going on, but our friends at NLFX are just amazing.
Oh, so let's talk about and that's going to be a video that hits later this week. We shot the comparison of the eVerse 8 and the eVerse 12, which, they give you a couple of sneak peeks. First off, guys, which one do you think gets louder?
12.
Dan? Yeah, Dan's right. The 8 does. I think the 8 gets louder.
Does it?
I think it does.
I had a friend. I helped a friend load out this last Saturday. He was literally across the parking lot from me, and he bought one of those 12s, and he remoted it in the back of the room. And I was like, "Well, tell me about it. Do you like it?" He goes, "I think it's louder than the 8." And so I've not heard it.
They're right like next to each other. What's interesting is that when you put the same signal into both of them, you get the limiting light clicking on almost in synchronization.
Oh.
Where it is louder is in the bass.
Huh.
That 12 definitely gives you, but when you're holding that decibel meter, it's like almost identical. The 8 sometimes will be, depending upon the song, it'll be louder. Your ears will perceive the 8 as louder because but the 12, I think, certainly will give you more bass, and you can definitely hear that. So the other part, one video will be basically comparing and giving everybody, because I wanted to find the roll-off point to them and where you lose it. So we started going through and putting tones to them, the 12, the 8. And then we went down and dropped it 20 hertz, the 12, the 8. And then so you'll get to hear where all of a sudden you lose one of them. It's kind of,
I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait.
So that was one of the videos. And the other one was putting a sub below them. We took a... I did a 12-inch sub with the 8. Well, this time we went with a 15 below the 8 and below the 12. So the EKX 15-inch sub. And I'll tell you what, it was really impressive. As far as, it's like I liked the 12 below the 8, but wow, this 15 kind of gave you a little different perspective. So
wait, the 15 below the 8.
Yes.
That was good.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
That was surprising, but that almost makes sense because that 8, I think the reason why the 8 is perceived louder is because the vocals it's not doing the real low frequencies. It's not as well. So it's able to focus more on those vocal ranges. And then of course, when all those low frequencies are coming through the 15, you're not asking like in the 12 situation where it's going to basically take everything from 100 hertz on up and it's trying to reproduce all those. You can set the crossover point a little bit higher on the 8 and match it with the sub. And it's like, oh yeah, it becomes like a big 3-way cabinet that way really quickly. And having an 8 doing that, mids, and then of course the tweeter for the highs. So yeah,
I did pick I didn't pick up a 12, but I picked up two more eights just to have the back because the pricing was just too good to be true.
and
With NLFX.
I think for somebody who's wanting, I think the 12s could be a full standalone system for some events, because you guys will see the sound pressure we were able to get from that. The 8 would be fewer events, and it's mainly because you just can't get the bass. There just isn't the bass there. But for Phil on the other side of the room or ceremony, I think the 8, size-wise, is just way too attractive. Sound quality and size-wise, because it's small and compact. And the 12 is literally twice the size because it's a full 12-inch speaker. So it really, it depends on applications. It's truthfully not, it's like the difference between the Evolve 30 and the Evolve 50. Depending upon your application, they both can do different jobs, and they can do them very, very well. But I've used the Evolve 30 as a fill speaker in a separate room during cocktail time. Wonderful speaker for that. It gives you there's a little bass to it, and it gives you that nice dispersion in the room. Would I use it on the dance floor? Probably not, just because it's a smaller sub and just doesn't have as much horsepower as the 50. So yeah, it's interesting to get to actually put them together and be playing back and forth and listening to them. But so yeah, those should be dropping. I think Michael's was editing those up tonight, and they'll be dropping later in the week. So
I did find out, since we're talking gear, which I didn't know this was existing. So we've heard of the Chevet, the Gig Bar Move Plus ILS.
yes.
I thought that was the only version of that had the ILS. And a friend of mine said, "What's the difference between the Move ILS and the Move Plus ILS?" I said, "Somebody forgot the plus sign in their ad." A friend of mine come to find out that the original Gig Bar Move now has the ILS as an option built in. So you have the Gig Bar Move,
Yeah.
and then you have the Plus, which has the better movers and the different lasers and the more colors in the derbies, right? The one that ended up being like 1400, I think it was, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, 1500. And apparently now that the Gig Bar Move, I don't know what the price was, like it was under 1,000 though, has now the ILS built in.
Interesting. So I wonder how they activated that.
Well, well, yeah. I mean, I'm assuming it's and here's the one piece that I didn't know, but because I didn't think we'd talk about it tonight. I didn't research to know if it's a reactionary ILS or if it has the brains like the Plus had. Like when they first came out with the Plus, like that could then control all your other features, right? You control that one light and it speaks to the other ones that are ILS compatible. I don't know if the old Move is just compatible or if it's got the brains the way the new one did. Don't know that.
Hmm.
There you go.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just looking at the two different ones here, and it looks like, yeah, the Plus, it looks like they've changed they put a bigger strobe on it, or not a strobe, but a bigger laser on it.
The Plus has a bigger laser. It has 32-watt LEDs in the movers. It's got more colors in the derbies. Because I think the laser also, the old one was red green, and this is like red, green, and blue
Hmm.
for the laser.
Hmm. Interesting. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Not that I've gone to the ILS system, but it is something.
Mm-hmm.
It is something. So, well, wonderful, Dan. Why don't you take us home, and we'll see you guys next week.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for taking time to join us on this day after St. Patrick's Day party that we decided to have with all of you. Hopefully you got some food for thought, whether you're thinking about being a full-time DJ or you're contemplating maybe picking up that part-time job or vice versa, whatever might be the case. Have yourself a good one. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.